Hello and welcome to another episode of Raw Chatter. I am your host speaking, Vicky Midwood, the Human Health Optimizer. And of course, I am here today not solo. Hurrah, as you can see. We are two ladies in pink. It was not a thing that we had decided on in advance, purely coincidence, but we are both rocked up to share with you an amazing tale. Michelle Nima is coming from Miami, folks. As you know, I am London-based, and so she's joining us to share an incredible story. She is a speaker. She is an author. She is an expert on the art of bending time. Michelle, welcome. Thank you for joining us and help our audience to understand just what it is that you do and why you do it.
Okay, well, Vicky, it's so nice to meet you. And, we've both been through a bit of a journey involving autoimmunity, and that was really what brought me to the place I am today. So, in a nutshell, and I'll keep this part short so that people don't need to hear my whole life story. I was a lawyer for 33 years, and about 20 years into that, I got very, very burned out. I thought I had dealt with the burnout. Burnout is, often you kind of get to a place where you feel dead inside. You're not lighting up and feeling joy in the things that you felt joyful about that make you feel good and happy and like you have purpose and you're doing something important in the world. And instead you start feeling like everything you're doing is for someone else. Like a lot of people who are burned out feel very resentful and they feel like the choices they've made have ruined their life or aren't what they should have done, but now it's too late and they're sort of, they've accepted the chore of showing up and doing the same things over and over while not really feeling positive or happy about it. So I was there for a bit and I started climbing out of that through what was sort of my habitual go-to, which is exercise and eating a little better and feeling like, okay, if I can get myself back in shape, I'll feel happier. And I did that. And then I was diagnosed with an autoimmune disease ultimately. And that caused me to do a really big deep dive into this difficult thing that I know that you're familiar with, where medical doctors, when they talk about autoimmunity, they will start this conversation with, we don't know what causes this and there's no cure, but we have a drug we can give you, or we have or there's not much we can do to help. In my case, there's a drug that does help. It helps avoid a very serious secondary aspect to the damage that's caused by the autoimmune response. So I tried not to take that drug for a while. I tried to treat it nutritionally. It didn't work. I do take that drug. And I also went into such a deep dive into research about autoimmune diseases and how you prevent that and how you heal that I ultimately enrolled in a health coaching program and I became a certified health coach.
Amazing. And just to let the people listening know, there are hundreds of different autoimmune diseases, but getting a diagnosis actually in the UK is not an easy thing. I'm not sure how easy or difficult it is in the US, but actually one that is not, shall we say, one of the top normal autoimmune issues is something quite different. And yours is quite a rare autoimmune issue, isn't it? Hence, you went deeper.
It's when I was diagnosed about 10 years ago. And when I was diagnosed, the numbers that they told you online were about 8 in 100,000 people have what I have.
Yeah. So
it's now up to about 20 or 22 is the last number I've seen. And I think the reason for that is that as we've gotten more accurate and more specific blood testing technologies, they're finding this pattern in people's blood testing. I have a liver disease and it's related to liver enzymes. So I was diagnosed based on blood testing. I did have symptoms about a year before I was diagnosed. I jumped into healthy practices again, and that took away the pain that I had. I didn't have pain again. And I had gone to the hospital for pain and they thought I had gallstones. A year after that, I was diagnosed through a blood test at my doctor's office. And the numbers that had been elevated at the hospital where they thought I had gallstones had doubled. So, yeah, I mean, in the case of my
Wow.
disease, that elevation, which looked like gallstones, doubled in a year. The pattern of the enzymes that were elevated is an aspect of the diagnosis, as well as then they go to a next level of a very expensive, very sophisticated test where they count something, they literally count this in your blood, something called anti-mitochondrial antibody, AMA, and that is the definitive diagnostic test. So most doctors would never order that test.
Wow. Yeah, I'm going to say you were fortunate then that you had a doctor who did go to those elements and degrees of being thorough, and that led you then to changing your kind of career path.
Yeah, ultimately. So that was 10 years ago. And 10 years ago, I was looking on the internet about this disease and finding things like 10-year lifespan. And I mean, scary, scary things. The likelihood of needing a transplant if it's not effectively treated. In the past, before they had this drug that I take, a lot of the people who had this disease didn't know they had it until they showed up in the hospital in liver failure. And a lot of them died from it very, soon after. And it was too late for them. So thank God for these diagnostic tests. But also, I understood that there were things about your ability to heal yourself through lifestyle changes, through mindset changes, through literally everything you allow in, whether it's food, whether it's other people's behavior toward you, whether it's environmental toxins in your home, stress is huge. All of these things contribute to how your body behaves. And in some cases, your body's response to these assaults essentially on your system is to create an autoimmune attack on some part of you, which could differ for different people. So although there are hundreds of autoimmune diseases, the theory of functional medicine and integrative medicine is, in the end, it's because of a disbalance in something going on in your system, which has now caused your immune system to target some part of your body or some aspect of your system. And the way it's treated in that sense, in the functional medicine sense, is very similar. It's dealing with the stress. It's getting good nutrients into your body without a bunch of chemicals involved. It's getting some exercise. It's getting quality sleep. It's dealing with mindset issues which may cause you stress that aren't caused by stress. You make your own stress. One person's stressful environment is another person's exciting, thriving place.
And that's, I think, an important thing for you to actually kind of just expand on a little bit, because we all kind of think that we're all the same just to a certain degree, and that this environment's a healthy environment and that one's not a healthy environment. But actually, it's very individualistic. And part of that integrative functional health process is looking at you as a whole human, isn't it? And it's recognizing that a lot of the stuff that we think is healthy might be for somebody else, but isn't necessarily great for you.
Exactly. And so it's very, very, when you get to this stuff, it's very, very individualized. And what ended up happening for me was that after I got a grip on this holistic perspective of how I was living my life, I worked very hard on mindset. I worked very hard on building a life that involved movement without having to work very hard for it. And I'll tell you what I mean by that. I used to run regularly. I'd run long, I ran a half marathon. I would run a lot of 10K races, and I was running at one point about 6 to 8 miles every morning.
Wow.
I've had knee and back problems intermittently my entire adult life. Hello. Okay. I love to run to this day, but the fact is, I know that it's not the healthiest way for me to quote unquote get in shape, because I always beat myself up and end up quitting.
Right.
So, one of the things I realized is that if you look at the blue zones, the places in the world where a very high number of people end up living into their, 90s and 100-year-old age span, a lot of those people in those places move their bodies as a normal course of their lifestyle.
Correct.
They garden, they walk up hills, they live in areas where they walk more than they drive their cars.
Yeah.
You look at Sardinia in Italy is one of them. It's mountainous. And these older people are walking from their house to the cafe, and they might only walk 2 blocks to the cafe to meet with their friends and have a glass of wine. Or on the island in Greece, I can't remember which island, but there's an island in Greece, which is one of these places, or in Japan. All of these places, it's hilly. People are physically active, and it's not active in a sense of they're going to the gym every day and pumping iron. It's that they have a lifestyle that everything they're doing as a normal part of their life involves moving their bodies and not sitting in front of the television and behind the wheel of their car.
It's such an important thing to bring about, to let people kind of recognize that we used to do this, didn't we? In so many more countries, but even things like carrying your own shopping, now we get it delivered. Somebody else carries it from the delivery truck into your home, and you don't even need to lift up the actual container to unpack it. And so we're just, as you say, on a daily basis, moving less and less. And all of these time-saving devices to help us to clean are meaning that, all of the stuff that we used to just do as part of our daily lifestyle, we no longer do.
Right. And we have constructs that we've made for ourselves. I'll give you an example. A lot of us think of work as sitting at a desk in an office.
Right.
And if we create a business where we work from home, we still sit at a desk in an office, right? We'll create a place in our house where we sit at a desk in an office. And there are ways that we can, whether it's an office in an office building or an office in your home, there are ways we can take that, and I'll call it a culture of sitting, and we can shift that. Yeah. And we can do things like, if you have a meeting and the meeting is going to involve talking about things and not a lot of having to have a screen with everybody looking at it or having to use paper, sometimes it's better to be at a place where you have a table or whatever. But if it involves talking through an idea, why not do that while walking outside? Absolutely. Yeah. Or in my case, I have a home office. I have a number of different things that I do. I have a tradition of going for a walk in the morning. I do this very relaxing, nice kind of, I go get a cup of coffee. I was telling you earlier, there's a coffee shop in my neighborhood that makes teeny weeny pancakes for my dog. I love it. She gets 3 little tiny pancakes every day, and she refuses to go anywhere but that coffee shop when we leave the house. And then we walk around a park that is along the waterfront in Miami. And I really love being in nature and having the water near me, and all of that matters to me. However, let's be real. Normally, I tend not to take appointments before 10 in the morning. Nice. But there are times when I need to have a call or whatever. And, what I've started doing is, if that's the case, I take that call on my phone with my earbuds while I'm walking along the water. Brilliant. I don't have to be sitting in my office to take that call generally. Yeah. And, you can do things like that.
And I think this is important because you've recognized that it's the stuff that you can fit in along with what you have to do. So you have to take the call. So how can I make it a little bit more interesting, a little bit more fun? And it's funny, I was on a podcast episode actually yesterday, and we were talking about why is it that we literally take what we learned in school and just transfer it to work, i.e. you have to sit at a desk. So, you know, kids' bedrooms, we build a desk in there, don't we? We just literally bring school into the home. And it's like, you know, oftentimes people actually work better when they're walking or when they're sitting on the sofa or even lying on their tummy on the floor, because that's a more conducive, better environment or way of being within their body to actually learn. But it's so ingrained, as you say.
It
But
really is. And
if you can't get near water or you can't sort of go outside, you could do something indoors, couldn't you?
Oh, for sure. And you can also, like, for instance, just to move your body a little and not always be in the same position. You can't see this, but I have a standing desk thing on my desktop. It's not actually a big physical desk that lifts up. It's like almost like the size of a blotter.
Yeah.
And I can pick that up and I can work standing or I can work sitting.
Right, exactly.
Some people they have these walking pads.
Right.
That you can get a walking pad and you can literally stand there at your standing desk and walk while you are looking at your computer and doing research or whatever it is that you're doing. You know, things like that. The other thing is music. People are generally more kinesthetic, more auditory, or more visual.
Yes.
Kinesthetic being, for the people who are not into learning modalities, it's when, like, you probably know people who are better at learning by doing things, using your body. You know, a lot of times people in physical jobs, athletes, people like that tend to be more kinesthetic. Sometimes your ability to actually, you know, think and put things together and make things happen works better when you're using that modality. And it can also trigger memory. So someone who is highly auditory, it may be helpful for them to associate something with music or associate something with a word cadence, as opposed to someone who's very visual might, like, they're able to visualize like they actually see it in front of them, and that helps them remember.
Amazing.
And if you're very physical, there may be physical things that, like, I learned, I was very highly kinesthetic. And one of the things for me was, and now it's not as common with cell phones, but back when you dialed your touchpad phone, I realized that I wasn't learning phone numbers by the numbers. I could never remember the number sequence. I remembered how my finger moved when I touched the pad.
Wow. Right.
So I got used to, here's the pattern. And I could learn a number really easily when I learned the pattern. I couldn't learn it easily when I had to remember the numbers.
That's a beautiful illustration, I think, for people to really get clarity on the difference between those learning styles.
Yeah.
So now you learn that obviously all of the things that you've described there help our nervous system to be in a state of more calm and a more relaxed kind of state, as opposed to being kind of hyper. And obviously our body feels better if we're moving.
Right.
So how did you figure out the stuff that actually fitted into your lifestyle and what worked for you? Because obviously you're a very busy person, and working out what works and how it works and does it work. Did you just allow yourself to just have a go at all kinds of things, or how did you come to work
did.
Right.
The program that I got certified through as a health coach encourages you to try a bunch of different things. And they have a concept that they call primary food, which is all the inputs that are not the food that goes into your mouth. So they're very into, yes, you learn about nutrition. It was actually a nutritional health coaching program, but it also taught about managing stress. It also taught about getting exercise, getting quality sleep. How do you get quality sleep? What can you do to, you know, if you're one of those people who isn't sleeping well, what are the things you can do to fix that? Right. And, you know, how do you manage the stress? How do you deal with environment and figure out if there's anything going on there? So I learned a lot about that stuff. And at the same time, I was running my own law practice. I was ultimately, post getting the coaching certification, I did a little bit of educational online stuff for lawyers, where it was continuing education programs for lawyers
Nice.
about substance abuse prevention and about essentially something it was like a mini course that was very similar to what I'm doing with the Art of Bending Time, but it was targeted toward the legal field,
Right.
called Lawyers Thrive and Be Alive. And in doing those things, I realized, first of all, there was a point that I hit that I went, wow, I'd been trying these various things, and I realized that I was no longer feeling burned out.
Cool.
And I had felt burned out. I felt like it kind of helped, but I really didn't love my law job anymore. I really didn't. I wanted out. I was looking for a way out for a long time.
Right.
But then I realized one day, I was like, hey, like the things that I liked about it, I'm noticing those things again.
So there's
And
a big
that's
shift.
a cachet sign of burnout, is that, when you think about it, most people don't go into a job and think, I hate this, but I'm going to make money, so I'll show up every day and do the job. Like, that's not why somebody chooses a career.
Not usually.
They don't go through the work to get the degree. They don't get, take in the United States anyway, the bar exam is a very big deal. It's a 3-day test. I mean, there's a lot that goes into becoming a lawyer.
Yeah.
And most people who go into that don't do it thinking, I think I'm going to hate this, but I'll do it anyway,
Yeah.
There's something about it that they liked. In my case, I had a teacher who recognized in high school that I was a very, very good writer, and that I expressed myself well, and I was good at arguing. When I got a point taken off of a grade, I had a lot of grades increased when I went to her after class and said, this is why I answered it this way. And
Amazing.
she realized that there was more than one correct answer, and I'd end up getting the point. So what would happen because of that is, in the end, she advised me, you really should consider being a lawyer. I didn't know any lawyers. My family didn't have any lawyers.
Wow.
I went into this blind. And honestly, if I knew more about the career and what it really was like, I probably wouldn't have done it. There are aspects of law that I'm exceedingly good at, but it can be very isolating, and the isolating part I did not handle well.
Right.
So, it's everybody has different things. Obviously, every career has its positives and its negatives. But in my case, the parts that I loved, when I was burned out, I couldn't see that.
Right. I think that's really important for people to really hear, because if there are lawyers listening, and if they have done what you did and have decided to take that plunge and set up their own law firm, just to hear somebody else saying, you know what, yeah, it can be isolating, and it's really important to recognize that if you're feeling that, you're not on your own. And there are ways that you can manage it and can kind of change what is going on for you. But yeah, so you kind of recognized that you were starting to enjoy it more again, which is
and at that point, I realized that I'd learned something that I could do, that I could help other people with, who were in that place I'd been in,
Brilliant.
15 years ago now.
Yeah.
And I looked at who I was at that time, and I said, what was it about my life at the time that I thought I needed help with? Because when you're burned out, I liken this to being like a lobster in a pot, and you're getting cooked, but you don't realize it. So you don't know you're a lobster in a pot. You just think, oh yeah, I'm busy. That's the way it is. That's the career. That's my life. I'm fine. I can handle it. Right. And you think of yourself as tough, and you think of yourself as having this incredible strength where you can get everything done, and et cetera.
Yeah.
And you don't put two and two together. You don't realize that this underlying level of stress is affecting everything.
Yeah. When you're in it, you can't see it, can you?
You can't. And so what I was looking for when I sort of sat down with this introspection was, what is it about who I was then that if that person was to look for help in some way, what would they be looking for? And I realized that for me anyway, I thought I needed help with time management.
Right.
And I bought a time management course because I was having trouble getting things done. I was spinning my wheels. I was reading the same paragraph 8 times and, procrastinating on getting important stuff done while I was staring at my pile of emails. And I realized that that person who thought she was quote unquote too busy when her friends called,
Yeah.
and I was withdrawing from my friendships, I was withdrawing from my family. And I was doing it where I thought, I'm so busy, I don't have time to go to dinner, to take the trip for the weekend for somebody's graduation, to whatever it was. I was quote unquote too busy. That was my first words out of my mouth when somebody would ask about a personal type thing. And I thought I needed help managing time.
And can I just ask you, did you feel that that was the norm? Was everybody else that you could see who was a lawyer following that same path?
A lot of them. And a lot of lawyers wear this as a badge of honor.
Right.
Okay. So there's an expectation in the legal field to some degree, if you work in a law firm, especially in large law firms, and it's gotten, in my opinion, worse, not better.
Right.
There's sort of this, the law firms now, and I not all law firms are not truthful about this. I think they truly care, but their support of wellness is tempered by their business model, which is tied to numbers of hours billed.
Right. Right.
And the business's income in the case of most law firms. They've been talking about changing this model as long as I've been a lawyer.
Right.
And it hasn't, and it's never gone away. So, the idea that you're billing your time by the hour,
Yeah.
and the associates are essentially the product that's, the time is the product that's being sold.
Right.
So you make more money by selling more product.
Okay. Yeah.
And having less people.
Right. Yeah.
Right. And
Yeah.
and so that's a problem. And so there's a conflict there.
Massive conflict.
Huge conflict in how that works. And so there's a lot of turnover. There are a lot of lawyers who quit early in their careers.
Makes sense.
And there are a lot of lawyers who don't move up. One fallacy that a lot of people learn is the idea that when you become partner, it's easier, but it's never easier. The partners then have an expectation of bringing in business and still working the hours and managing people.
So it's more like 3x more responsibility rather than less.
Yeah. So it's and there are people who thrive in that and people who enjoy it. And, and then there are people, like I said, a lot of it has to do with how you handle it and what you want. And one of the things that I'm very, very big on, it's the cornerstone of the art of bending time, is really having a deep understanding of who you are, what lights you up.
Yeah.
And what matters most to you, so that in a holistic way, it's not just about work and it's not just about home. And work-life balance, in my opinion, is the biggest crock that we've ever been fed. Because what it does is it causes, especially women, you look at, as a woman who's a professional, we're basically told that we can't be a good professional without giving up a massive part of our personal lives. And we can't be a good mommy or a good wife or a good family member or friend if we spend too much time on our job.
Craziness.
And what we can be is a good human.
Correct.
Who has diverse interests and skills and talents and is capable and loving and all those things. But, if we allow this stupid construct of making our life into boxes to continue, we'll never be successful in anything.
I think I'm so pleased that you've said that, because so many people do talk about this work-life balance as an exclusive and elusive thing that we're striving for.
Mm-hmm.
But life's, right? And there's always going to be imbalances. That's the
Right.
nature of being a human. And when we look even at outside in nature, it's not in balance all of the time. There are anomalies, there are curved balls, we have sudden weather patterns that happen, and ultimately there are crops that will not work some years and will others. There's so many things that we forget about that are just, nature shows us what it's like to be a human. But we've got this crazy, and I think it is the language, isn't it, this idea that people think balance means all things equal, and that is not what it means at all.
Yeah. And when you look at it that way, what you just mentioned, I thought about, the leaves fall off of trees in winter.
Yeah,
They're not
exactly.
trying to leave in the winter. They're just not, right?
They're
And
clinging to it, going, no, I refuse to go.
right. And well, I'm a career tree. I've got to have leaves now.
Yeah,
And I'm failing as being a tree. I don't know, like it's crazy.
it
So
is.
the idea, I mean, to me, that idea is really bad.
Yeah.
And it's bad on a lot of levels. And this is where the art of bending time comes in. This is why I call it that, is that we don't necessarily, nobody has, everybody's got the same number of minutes and hours, et cetera, et cetera. And we can use that time in different ways. And there are things we can do to make that time more valuable, so to speak, or have more of an impact toward what we consider success. Not everybody has the same goals. Not everybody has the same values or what they consider success. So when we can get super clear about what matters to us, and that can be a variety of things. That could be being creative. That could be being a mother. That could be having an impact on our community. That could be being super successful in whatever our career is. We have all these things that, we may consider our priority.
I
And
think the
when,
important thing to just jump in with there is it's actually giving yourself permission, I think, and a little bit of space to
mhm.
actually do that bit of introspection, isn't it? And asking yourself that question. And I guess that what you're offering is the opportunity for people to actually go, what are the questions I need to be asking myself?
That's part of it. And then
Yeah.
so we start with finding out the very basic, which is what lights us up. And that goes into looking at sometimes childhood memories, sometimes things from young adulthood, times when you felt really proud, really excited, like so much.
Oh, you've just gone on mute.
There. Okay.
You were so excited you accidentally
I
hit the
know,
mute
and I hope it. So I don't know how that happened. It just happened. So anyway, somebody, when you find those moments, and then you dig into those moments and you think about what was going on then. What was I feeling? What was I doing? Who was around me? Was this something where people were around me and I felt like I was part of something? Was it something where I was moving my body and I just felt really pumped? Like there's all kinds of things that people come up with.
Brilliant.
And when they do that, we realize, okay, these moments, these micro moments are illustrative of what lights you up as an individual, as opposed to other people, right? And when you can look at that and then say, okay, what is it in what I do? I chose to do something probably because I thought it would give me some of this. That's just a natural, you're drawn to that naturally because of something in it, right?
Yes.
Or in my personal life, what is it, where do I get these feelings that light me up? And how can I proactively get more of it? So if you're burned out in your job where you sit at your desk all day and you spend way too much time pushing piles of paper around, when what lights you up is the connection the mentoring, for instance, of more junior people and teaching them how to be great at what they do, the building of a team and moving toward a goal together. If that's the part that lights you up, the people part, then you can find ways to offload the part that doesn't light you up, so that you're spending more of your time doing the part you excel at and that fuels you, as opposed to the part that you probably aren't as good at because you don't like it.
Makes sense.
It's probably negatively impacting your job performance.
Right.
And there's probably somebody else who is lit up by that. There are detail-oriented people who love that, right? I'm not one of them.
No, I'm not.
I have to do something today for my tax accountant that I'm not excited about doing, and it's just boring, right? But I've got to do it because the taxes are due September 15th and I'm going out of the country on the 1st. So, that kind of thing, when you can help somebody by moving that responsibility to somebody else who likes it, they're going to get more out of their job. It's going to improve your environment, and it's going to improve your own, not just your own happiness, but probably your actual career performance at work and at home the same way. So
makes sense, doesn't it? When you put it like that, my brain's just gone to what do we do with people who may be listening and going, yeah, Michelle, that's great, that's all well and good, but in my environment, how do I even go about being able to do that? Do you have to go to the person who you want to offload some of your stuff to? Or is it a case of you all need to sit down as a kind of a team and as a company and just say, right, what brings you joy? What are your strengths? How does somebody practically actually do this? Because I love the idea of it. But if somebody's listening going, that's great, but how do I make it work?
It's the hardest, obviously, if you're in a job where you're not management, you don't have control over the work assignments and that kind of thing. But let's call it the first line of defense for anyone, is that we control our own perceptions and our own thoughts. And this is where the mindset part comes in.
Right.
So let's assume that you're someone whose job is to manage an office. A bunch of your work involves paperwork. You don't love the paperwork, but you love the people.
Right.
And you're not really sure how to take away that paperwork part that's your job.
Yeah.
Because it is part of what you're paid for. And to replace, that, they'd have to hire somebody else, let's say.
Okay. Yeah.
And you don't have that person.
Right.
So there are different ways. First of all, just knowing that the people part is what makes you happier, or the paperwork part is what makes you happier. You're really good at the budget and making sure everything's taken care of and orderly, and you never go over, so your company is in a good position financially and you feel great about that. And you're making sure the vendors are staying within their contract prices and all that. I mean, that's a very, very important role. Whatever that role, that piece of it is that makes you feel like you're doing something important, you're doing something you're great at and you love it. The first step is to recognize that.
Amazing.
And to celebrate that.
Right.
And that you're doing, literally think about the fact, hey, I get to do this. One of the things I love is the idea that language is very, very important.
Huge.
And when I say I get to, you heard me say, I hate the bookkeeping. I have to do this today. I should be saying, and I'm not going to say I should, that's not right. But I get to revisit these accounting things that happened last year that we need to straighten out, so that we have the whole picture for what we're doing on the taxes, right?
Huge.
So
the recognition, I think that the thing is, for people, I think in the US it's slightly different. In the US, people are more comfortable with people going, hey, well done, or good job, or that kind of thing. In the UK, very much, we're extraordinarily reserved.
Yes.
I think we feel that it's almost arrogant or big-headed, or you are showing off if you can actually say well done to yourself or recognize your strengths. And I know that it's not the same across a lot of countries, but just that, recognizing just for yourself, in yourself, you don't have to say anything, do you, to anybody, but to just own it.
You can have a great big smile on the inside if you want. Okay. Like, if you want to have your British stiff upper lip.
Yeah.
And I say this coming from the place of an American who comes from lots of English people. So I get it.
Yeah.
And it's a cultural thing. And it's something that, it's possible to have a very positive and a very happy outlook without bragging, without putting other people down.
Yeah.
You're not putting other people down by feeling good inside about having done something or seen something, or, recognizing that you like an aspect of something you're doing. So, that's a piece of it. And when you do that, you start to become more efficient and more effective just because you're coming into it with a different attitude.
Brilliant.
So, and then one of the things, as I mentioned, like about crossing the lines, connecting dots.
Yeah.
And this is huge too. If we don't draw a line, a hard line, like there's a wall and a box where you've got the home box and the work box, and ne'er the two shall meet. When you talk at your, to your work colleagues about something you're doing outside of work that you're really excited about, for instance, or vice versa. You're at a dinner party and you talk to people that are friends about something you're excited about in your work context, or something that you aren't sure how to handle, and you know that somebody might have some suggestions. You're cross-pollinating ideas, and you're cross-pollinating potentially networks of connections that may get you the answer, or may get you the sale, or may get you
the
mentorship you need to get to the next level in a way that never would have happened if you hadn't allowed that box to be broken down.
Right.
And that to me is like the ultimate of making the magic happen with the art of bending time. Is when you break down those walls and you allow yourself to have the full capacity that is in you, and not break yourself into pieces.
I think what you've described there is something that so many people can recognize and resonate with, this idea that you have to cut work off. Once you get home, you don't talk about work, and once you're at work, then home stays at home. But as you've just beautifully illustrated there, it's a bit like how the body and the brain work, isn't it? It's an orchestra. The body and the brain are not separate. They work together in this beautiful symphony. And ultimately, you are the person, the human, who is still you, whether you're talking about work stuff or home stuff. If you're excited about something, energetically, people are going to be drawn to that conversation. And we all just love helping each other, don't we? Ultimately, humans want to be of help if they can be, even if it's just in a small way. And what you've described there is just allowing. Again, it's allowing yourself to be yourself, isn't it?
And so the last thing I'm going to say is, the big caveat to that is, you need to, and I'm going to say, be here now. Okay. You have that clarity. You know what your priorities are. You know who matters. You know what matters. You know what your big goals are, and how you're going to, you're opening those boxes in a way. But when you're doing the things and living your life, you need to make sure that you're not only partially there all the time. And one of the things we see so much of now, especially with the advent of smartphones and people having worked at home and COVID, and now home is like, there's this kind of permeability of, everything's office time or everything's home time, or I'm expected to be on call 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
It's so important to really draw. I mean, when I say boundaries, I don't mean boundaries of home, I'm only at home or I'm only at work. I mean boundaries of my family time matters to me because I want to connect with my spouse.
Right.
I want to have real conversations where we're both actually there and we're talking to each other and we're present for each other. And the same with my children or with my parents or with my coworkers. You don't want to be in a position where everybody that you're dealing with, half of you has your phone in your hand and you're looking at the texts.
No, you're right.
There's nothing that makes me sadder than when I sit at a restaurant and I see these couples at tables where they're both on their phone and they're not talking to each other, and they sit there for an entire hour.
Yeah. No communication.
Like the waiter has to interrupt to take the order, and and you look at that and it's so sad. And that the most important thing you can do to maximize the value and the impact of your time is to be in the moment and then do the things you're supposed to be doing in that moment, right? Because if you never allow yourself to have that focus, you're always going to be sort of spread so thin that nothing is efficient.
Right. And I think that's key, that last sentence. We almost think that we're being more efficient if we're multitasking, especially as women. We're very used to doing a number of things at once. But if you are only, as you say, only half present, nobody is going to feel that you are listening fully, that you're being fully attentive. And chances are that you're going to forget stuff that to the other person is extremely important.
Right.
And it just, whether it's a work thing or a home thing, it doesn't really matter. More mistakes, I'm sure, are made and more time wasted because you are thinking that you're being efficient by trying to do two things at once.
Well, we actually know neuroscience has proven that we cannot multitask.
Yeah.
It's literally not physically possible. What we're doing is we're switching back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And every time we do that, our neurotransmitters are firing.
Mm-hmm.
We're literally depleting some things.
Yeah.
We're creating imbalances that shouldn't exist.
Yeah.
And yes, we can have memory issues related to it. We're not going to be efficient. We're probably not going to get the stuff done. And that person you're ignoring feels feels disconnected from you. Yeah. And that affects your relationships.
Absolutely. Amazing. So how can people find out more about the art of time bending? How do you actually bring this to people?
Okay, so I have a free community, and for your listeners, I want to give you this opportunity because this is really the best way. So I mentioned getting a grip on what lights you up, that's the first step.
Yeah.
So I have it's a guided meditation and some journal prompts related to that are tools within an online community that I keep just for that, for people who want to come in and they want to have access to these tools. And there's also a decision-making analysis I have called a SWOT analysis that's in there. And they can sign up for that. And I have a link that I gave you that you can put in your show notes. So they can look at that link and click it and sign up. And when they do that, they can get access to those tools. And once they're in there, they're in my ecosystem, they can find me. And if they'd like to be coached or anything like that, we can do that.
Awesome. You also have a number of videos that are available on YouTube where you have shared on other podcasts. And, if people are interested in just hearing more about, because every time we talk about this stuff, we talk about it slightly differently, don't we? And what I like to leave our listeners with is the one thing that you feel, if they don't take away anything else, but just one thing from this podcast, what would that thing be?
Know what lights you up and proactively get it in your life.
There you go, folks. You heard it from Michelle, who is an absolute expert in the art of bending time. Michelle, thank you so much. And for those of you who are listening, if you haven't yet subscribed, please do. If you've enjoyed what you've heard today, give us a like, give us a thumbs up. And don't forget that the link for Michelle's offer is in the description if you're watching on YouTube, and it's in the show notes if you're on Spotify or Apple or any of the other marvelous podcast channels that are out there. Michelle, it just remains for me to sign off and say thank you so much for joining us. And as always, folks, you only have one life as far as we know, and one body. So please take care of it, because it is taking care of you. Until next time, have a great day. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.